So with Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens less than 1 month away, we are at a time where you're going to start seeing a lot of Star Wars related videos and articles and so on as an attempt to cash in on the popularity that is Star Wars Episode 7. And that's not what this is. This is not just a blatant attempt at cashing in on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which is less than a month away and super popular, and knowing that everybody's going to be looking for Star Wars related videos. That is not what this is. So first of all, thank you to San Creole who told me about this particular fairy making its way around the internet. Now for those who do not know, Lumpawaroo, the son of Chewbacca, the very same son that Chewbacca abandoned to go gallivanting around the solar system with Han Solo, but you know, life, death, whatever. Lumpawaroo a little while ago decided to post a theory on Reddit. Now in this theory he states that he believes that Jar Jar Binks, yes, Jar Jar Binks, the bumbling idiot from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was originally intended to be a Sith Lord. He goes on to explain that Jar Jar Binks is a trained fighter. He believes that he is force sensitive. He believes that he is in cahoots with Palpatine, and he believes that Jar Jar Binks will make a return in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, to reveal himself as Supreme Leader Snooky. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I want to talk about this in stages. Now first I want to talk about Jar Jar being a skilled warrior. Now Lumpawaroo refers to Jar Jar's 20-foot twisting jump where he does somersault in the air and lands, jumps into the water. He also centers himself before that. He compares that to the movements of Z-Quan or Drunken Fist style, and it is very similar as the video that he put up shows. He also refers to his dumb luck during the battle scenes where he's making these movements and shooting the droids at the same time. Also compares those movements to Z-Quan, also very similar, and also some movements with his hands, also very similar to Z-Quan. He points out that during the beginning, near the beginning rather, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are going to rescue the Queen and how they're sneaking behind the wall, he points out that Jar Jar sneaks in just casually, just along with them, just really just getting down low and, you know, not tripping over anything. And also when he jumps over the wall and you see him hanging onto the ledge, you don't see what happens after that because it happens off camera, but he does appear to fall on the other side, and you see the droid shooting in one direction but then looking in the other as he lands. So it looks, or it appears rather, as if he did some kind of force assisted jump, and that ties into the Force, which I'll talk about in a moment. But what do we know about Jar Jar and the Gungans? Now, well, Jar Jar appears to be some kind of bumbling idiot, at least appears to be, but is he? Let's see. He mentioned to Obi-Wan that he was banished from Gungan City because he was clumsy. Now, at first, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I mean, why would you banish someone because they're being clumsy? I mean, perhaps he was lying, but we later know that from Jar Jar, he mentions that the Gungans, Wisa, have a grand army, Wisa warriors, as he puts it. And then this is actually later confirmed when we see that Gungans do have a grand army, and also when Qui-Gon is talking to Boss Nass, and he mentions that many Gungans could be killed during this battle. Boss Nass replies, "Wisa ready to wasampat," you know, so they are very much ready for war. These are a group of people, a race of people that are ready to fight and ready to die if necessary. They are fighters. So when we go back to Jar Jar being banished for being clumsy, it kind of makes sense. If you are a race of people that are battle ready, you don't necessarily want anybody around who's some of an embarrassment and clumsy and tripping all over the place. But it also means that he probably had some kind of fight training before he was before he got banished, and probably when they realized he was just too clumsy to keep around. Now granted, that is speculation, but I do feel it makes sense when in context of what we see in Episode 1. So the next part of the theory is Binks is a Force user. Now Lumpawaroo points to the hand waving his way to a promotion through Boss Nass and hand waving his way to promotion through Queen Amidala. He also points to the Galactic Senate and hand waving his way to usher in the end of democracy. He talks about Binks tricking the Jedi to travel through the planet's core so that they need him, mocking Qui-Gon behind his back, so that Anakin develops disrespect for the Jedi from an early age, and also telling young 8-year-old Anakin that the queens are pretty hot, fanning the flames for the child's infatuation. So hand waving his way to a promotion through Boss Nass, not quite. Boss Nass was actually already giving him the promotion before any hand waving took place. He was saying, you know, you've done well, and he's actually saying no. He's actually being humbly dismissive of the compliment that he's receiving. So he's not asking for promotion. He's not suggesting that he should have a promotion. Boss Nass was already giving him the promotion. He's just going, no, I haven't done anything. I was all nothing. It was nothing. Hand waving his way to promotion through Queen Amidala again. Queen Amidala was actually already giving him the promotion to represent the Senate. He was just hand waving when he was accepting the offer. So he wasn't suggesting it, he wasn't asking for it. He was just saying, I graciously accept this offer you have given me. So there was no, Jedi mind tricks. The Jedi tend to be like, you'll give all your money to me, things like that. He wasn't asking for it, he wasn't suggesting it, he was just, I accept. Now, the Galactic Sentence, I want to come back to this when he says that he was waving his hands to usher in end of democracy. I'm going to come back to this one because this ties into the Palpatine and Binks collaboration, so I'll come back to that in a moment. Binks tricking the Jedi to travel through the planet's core, though, no. It was actually Boss Nass that told him to go through the planet's core. Binks was actually telling them that they shouldn't go for it because it's a trap and it's dangerous and so on. And then Qui-Gon thought, we might need this guy, let's keep him around. Carefully causing a scene so that they run into Anakin. No, it was actually Obi-Wan that suggested that they go to Tatooine. Jar Jar Binks had nothing to do with that decision. Mocking Qui-Gon behind his back so that Anakin develops disrespect for the Jedi from a young age. No, not quite. In fact, at this point, they didn't actually know that Anakin was going to be of any significance. Even Qui-Gon didn't know that Anakin was of any significance. So I think that's a little bit too much of a stretch. And then telling 8-year-old Anakin that the Queen is a pretty hot, fanning the flames with child's infatuations, not quite on two accounts. One is that Anakin already told Padme that he thought she was a beautiful angel. So he already had some kind of fancy feelings for her, just, anyway. Also, at this point, we don't know that who we see as Padme was actually the Queen, and who we see as the Queen was actually one of the decoys. So when Jar Jar Binks is saying the Queen's a pretty hot, he's actually referring to the decoy and not Padme, who is the one that Anakin actually fancied was Padme, who turned to be the Queen. But here's where it gets really confusing, because if you look on Wikipedia, it points out that Padme and Amidala are supposed to be the same exact person. But if you watch the film, you don't get that impression. They come across as two separate characters. One's the handmaiden, one's the decoy, or one's the Queen, and it's just screwed up. So as far as this film is concerned, Padme was the one that Anakin fancied, who was the actual Queen, but pretending to be the handmaiden. And then the Queen, the decoy, is one that Jar Jar Binks was referring to, who was one of the decoys, but not the Queen. George Lucas screwed it. Let's just put it that way. Somebody screwed up that script, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense about who the characters are. They actually come across as two different people. Apparently, they're supposed to be the same person. Who knows? Now, the only thing left unaccounted for is what appeared to be the Force-assisted jump. But considering that nothing else ties into the idea of Binks being a Force user, I think that's more likely to be part of his training that he had before he was banished. Now again, that's speculation, but I do feel that fits more into the idea considering everything else in the film. Also though, I did watch a few of the other videos that responded to this theory. I believe it was Cracked video that pointed out that there's various scenes where you see Jar Jar Binks' lips moving, but you don't really hear what he's saying. I think that's just his lips moving. Nothing else really fits into the idea of Binks being a Force user, so yeah, his lips moved. I don't think that really means much in the end, really. Alright, so Palpatine and Binks being in cahoots with each other. Now, the theory points to Palpatine and Binks being from the same planet, Naboo. Also points to Binks' speech that facilitates Palpatine's plans. And also during Revenge, we see that Binks and Palpatine are hanging out with each other. So, why are they still hanging out with each other? We need to know. Alright then, so Binks' speech facilitating Palpatine's plans. This is where the hand-waving stuff comes in as well. This is actually somewhat true because during that speech he's saying that we need to give immediate emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor, to Palpatine, and they all agree and he's waving his hand saying that we should do this. However, this was not actually Binks' idea. In fact, a few scenes prior to that we see Binks, Palpatine, Mace Windu, Yoda, I don't know his name, but some blue horny thing in a room. Now, Binks doesn't say anything during this whole time, and Organa's there as well. This blue horny thing's one that actually suggests it. He says that we need to give immediate powers to the Chancellor, and then Palpatine's like, well, who would have the courage to do such a thing? Oh, if only Queen Amidala was here. And Binks the whole time is not saying a thing, but the last shot is Binks kind of like, maybe he's thinking about it. And then later on we see that he's like, we must give the immediate powers to the Supreme Chancellor, and they're all clapping hands and so on. So Yeah, not his ideas. The whole thing about the Force, going back to the Force thing for a moment, yeah, still a bit of a stretch, I think. You know, he's just really setting what somebody else already suggested that he didn't really have any kind of input in, and they just happened to agree that was a good idea. So yeah, there's that. Now, Binks and Palpatine still hanging out in Revenge of the Sith. Now let's bear in mind that Binks is actually representative for the Senate, so there's actually no good reason why he shouldn't be hanging around with Palpatine, especially considering that at this point they still don't know that Palpatine is the main bad guy. They still think he's one of them. They haven't quite fully sussed him out yet because, you know, the dark side, it clouds everything. So, you know, they haven't figured him out yet. But the last time we see Binks in Revenge of the Sith is actually after it's revealed that Palpatine is Darth Sidious. No, he's there talking to the Senate. He's standing in one of them floating things, and he's got his hood up, and he's like, "The attempt of my life." No, wait a minute. The attempt of my life has left me scarred. You know, whatever he's saying there. Anyway, there's a shot showing Organa walking in to see Amidala, and we see that Binks is actually sitting with Queen Amidala and Organa at that point, so it can somewhat be reasonably assumed, I believe. I know it's an assumption, and you know, but it can somewhat be reasonably assumed just by that he's distanced himself from Palpatine after it's revealed that he's the bad guy. And as far as them being from the same planet goes, well, so what? I mean, Amidala's also from Naboo as well, and she's clearly not in cahoots with Palpatine, so yeah. So, was Jar Jar Binks originally intended to be a Sith Lord? Now, here's what we know about the Sith according to Master Yoda at the end of episode 1. There are always two, never more, never less, a master and an apprentice. Now, episode 1, Master Darth Sidious, apprentice Darth Maul. Darth Maul is killed, and then episode 2, the new apprentice is Count Dooku. Now, Count Dooku, a few people have mentioned this before, he did feel rushed. He did feel like he was thrown in at the last minute. Now, that may not have been the case. Maybe that's just how it came across. For all we know, they planned him from years back. But certainly the way he comes across, he does feel a little bit rushed, a little bit thrown in at the last minute. And also, we do know from interviews with George Lucas where he mentions that certain things have changed between episodes 1 and 2. And just empirically, we can see that Jar Jar Binks has changed between episodes 1 and 2. He goes from being a prominent character to not so prominent in episode 2, and then episode 3 he was barely existent. So was one of those changes made, was one of the changes made that Jar Jar Binks was no longer the Sith Lord? Was that the original intention, for him to be the new apprentice rather than Count Dooku? Maybe. I mean, I would say that I don't think it's impossible, but I do think it's improbable. I mean, looking at episode 1, I personally don't see anything that really suggests that Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be the new apprentice. There's nothing really that suggests that he's even supposed to be a bad guy. But let's assume that he was in cahoots with Palpatine. Let's assume that he did lie about the reasons he was banished from Gungan City. We'd have to then assume that somehow Jar Jar Binks knew that Qui-Gon was going to run into him, that he wasn't just going to use the Force to push Jar Jar out the way or, you know, change directions. We'd have to assume that somehow Jar Jar Binks knew that Obi-Wan was going to choose, or suggest rather, to go to Tatooine. We'd have to assume that somehow Jar Jar Binks knew that Anakin was going to be a significant character before Qui-Gon knew that he was going to be a significant character. In fact, before Anakin knew that himself he was going to be a significant character. We'd have to assume a lot of things that don't quite add up. And the problem there is that I just feel it's too many assumptions. And, you know, I'm okay with speculating a little bit, but come on, this feels like we're just stretching a lot to make this a reach. And when you're stretching that far, it's kind of like, you know? So I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's improbable, because let's face it, who knows what kind of crazy ideas were kicking around the minds of George Lucas and his creative team at the time of episodes 1 and 2. And I mean, they came up with Jar Jar Binks for crying out loud. It's like they were clearly thinking of some crazy things. So not impossible. I just do think it's a little bit improbable. Now, as for Jar Jar Binks being revealed as Supreme Leader Snoke in episode 7, possible. But again, I do think it's a little bit improbable. I mean, let's see. I mean, we don't know what happened to Jar Jar Binks after episode 3. Clearly wasn't involved in episodes 4, 5, and 6. So whatever happened between Jar Jar between the ends of episode 3 and episode 7, we just don't know. Maybe he went somewhere, some stuff happened, and he got pissed off with the world and became, you know, a Sith Lord and started calling himself Supreme Leader Snoke. We don't know. We just don't know. So I wouldn't say it's impossible. Also, there was the photo that showed the behind the scenes Lumpawaroo, and it very pointed out that there was a behind the scenes photo that shows that they had some Gungan makeup and mask and so on. Now, here's the thing about that. That in and of itself isn't proof that the Gungans are coming back. All that really shows is that they are thinking about it. What I mean is that one of the reasons why these films have such a huge budget is because it gives the director the freedom to do a lot of things and then decide to cut it out. So I'm talking about they can build sets, they can have, you know, all the craftsmanships done and paid for, the locations paid for, catering paid for, makeup paid for, wardrobe paid for, all the actors paid for, film it, edit it, put it all together, and at the last minute decide, you know what, cut it out. They would have the freedom to do that. So when you hear about films costing 100 million, 200 million, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything you see in a movie was that budget spent. I mean, a lot of it is going to be things that were just left on the cutting room floor, including things that were bought, paid for, things that cost a lot of money. It gives them that freedom to be able to say, cut out this character, cut out this scene, replace it, shoot this again. It gives them a lot of freedom when they have these massive budgets, and that's one of the reasons why they do that. So the photo that showed that they had the Gungan makeup and Gungan masks and things, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are definitely coming back. I'm not saying they're not coming back, let me be clear on that. But it doesn't in and of itself mean that they're definitely coming back. It does mean that it is at least a thought. So there is a possibility, a real possibility, that the Gungans are coming back. And if they are, you know, why not Jar Jar? Why not Jar Jar Binks? He's, for better or worse, the most popular Gungan. So it kind of makes sense if they are going to bring the Gungans back. But is he going to be Supreme Leader Snoke? I'd have to say I just don't see it personally. But I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. It is what it is. I mean, we won't know until episode 7 drops in less than a month away. So we'll all find out then, or possibly find out then. They may reveal it in one of the later movies. You know, they'll just keep us hanging for a little while. So we'll see or potentially we'll see when it's released. But that's what I think for now. Let me know what you think, and if you like this video, give me a like and share it amongst your friends. If you didn't like it, give me a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until next time, only a Sith deals in absolutes.